Good morning, everybody. It's so good to be here. My name is Dejan Stojkovic, and thank you so much. Thank you so much for the high school students, for the beautiful prayers. Thank you, team, for introduction. Dante, for the children's story. Children's story is the most risky part of the church service. Did you know that? If Dante lost the control, that's it. Our young people just take over. We will have to call it the end. Certainly, praise team, thank you so much for worship leading. And so it is great to be here with you. I just want to take a few moments before we go to the message, if that's all right. I just want to say, I just want to promote something for you. And if it's okay to have a couple of posters just on the screen, because we have actually opened the registrations for the summer camps. So this is the toughest group of people, our little jets. So if you're a mom and dad, I would suggest you take a phone and just scan that code, and it's going to go on your phone. You don't have to fill the form now, because if I catch you doing this, I'm going to have to call you out. So our jets, we had about 80 last summer, and we had an amazing group of staff which came from all around. And so if you have young people that would like to join us, please do scan this QR code, and because the registrations are coming in already. This is just an interest form, so you don't have to pay anything. You just need to register your interest, and we will actually email you when the registration form is in. And there is one more, if that's okay, and that is for our teens and teenagers. Well, we had an amazing group from Castle Hill last summer. Who was at the summer camp? Thank you so much for leading in worship. You just want to see hands. There's quite a few of you. That's right. So guys, we just want to encourage you, if it's possible, register, guys. Scan the code. As I said, nothing. This is not a commitment 100%. This is just like, I would like to go. So if moms and dads, your teenagers come to you, or you start getting emails from us asking for something, don't worry, it's no problem at all. A positive thing about this is, again, we have quite a few registrations already, and we're going to have actually a Summer Teens reunion date. In other words, we're going to bring all the kids from the summer camp, our teens, and but not jets, not really, but these ones. I just realized we are discriminating against younger generations. We might need to do something. So if you would like to come and join us just for reunion day, even if you didn't come to summer camp, we will still, we will allow you to pretend. On the 7th of September, we're going to go to the Mile End Church, the only church I was able to get on a short notice. So we're going to get all our teens to come there. So if it's possible, please consider joining, because it was a beautiful experience for so many. In fact, just to let you know, I'm in church today, and I love God is because of summer camps. I can't even tell you the reason. I actually got sent home. Yes. And I maybe need to tell you now, because now you're going to think what happened. Serbian summer camps are much more tougher than your summer camps. And we went for the walk, and there was this beautiful girl, I do apologize, and I was walking next to her, and they told us what time we need to be back. And I didn't check my clock, and we came 15 minutes later, and my camp master said, you need to pack your bags, you're going home. I'm like, why? She's like, because you're late. And, I was about to say, well, how come you don't send her home as well? But I was a pastor's son, maybe that's the reason. And that very night before they sent me home, the buses left already, so I couldn't be sent home. So it was a worship, and that worship, somebody said, well, the pastor who sent me home, he said, is anybody here who would like to share testimony? And you can just imagine, for the teenagers, the hardest thing is to pray publicly and to share the testimony. And guess what? I was thinking, well, I'm sent home, so who cares? So I put my hand up, and you can just imagine the pastor is looking, is anybody there? And there's like only me. and is anybody there? I was like, pick me. And he just, the last thing, he wanted to give me a microphone for sure, because he just sent me home. So he just knew, who knows what I'm going to say. And that very night, I actually shared my first testimony, which was how God was working in my life in school in a post-communist country. And for the first time, as I was sharing my testimony, actually God became real in my life. And that testimony is today connected to me loving God and serving the church. I feel is truly the best, and God's church as well. So summer camps are life-changing places. So moms and dads, send your kids. Your kids are much better than ours, so there is no danger of us sending them home for sure. So now let us go to the topic of today, and that is the big questions And now, as I was introduced the topic, I thought I would be just slotted in between, so I will not be the first one. Because as you know, Seventh Adventist Church, we are very good in sandwiches. You have a prayer, then you have a song, and then you have another thing, children's story, and so we were really good in layering our services. So I was hoping I would be in the middle, but it seems to me this is the first time we are opening this, and I just want to take a few moments to introduce this topic to you. And the reason why is because I believe every single church should be going through this, and the reason is simple. Why? And the reason is this: if you heard and saw our young people here, you, especially our kids, you know the song very well. Jesus loves me, yes I know, for the Bible tells me so. This is the song that I think that our kids are carrying throughout their lives. Sometimes I'm thinking I need to play that song when I'm calling them for lunch. Jesus loves me. And they'll just slowly start coming to the lunch table. Reality is this: our faith grows every single time, every single day, every moment of our lives. But guess what? There is an issue, and the issue is that sometimes we stop in that faith growth. In other words, we are so good with our jets, we are so good with up to certain levels, but then somehow we stopped asking questions, and guess what happens next? We stop growing in our faith. And so therefore, especially if your mom and dad, there is this sentence, you do this because I told you so. That's the worst thing you can tell to your child. Because do you know what happens next? They actually spend time how to sabotage that sentence. They do everything not to listen to you. And guess what? In the same thing in our faith and church journey, dear friends, questions need to be asked. And sometimes we are afraid of asking questions. And did you know the young people, very, very young people, they're actually able to ask up to between 250 and 300 questions a day. If you see somebody here today look a little bit run down, a little bit tired, just give them some slack. Because maybe they just answered 298 questions. And they are, and my little kids, they are like, why? And you're trying to give different answers every single time, but at some point you can't. And then guess what? This is what happens to us. And this is the reason why this topic is so important. Is because when we turn our age, I don't know what our age is, but let's just say our age. We only ask between 20 and 30 questions a day. And do you know when? When it's really necessary. For the men mainly is like, where are my socks? Because we always don't know where they are. But the bottom line is this. We stop asking questions. And therefore, thank you so much to the pastoral team for choosing this, because we need to be asking big questions, because we need to continue on our faith journey, and the questions are the way forward. And so this morning, the real topic we are trying to address, and I will give you the main point in the beginning, just in case if somebody decides to close their eyes and pretend they're focusing. You have that as well? Because in England, there are people who sit like this and they close their eyes. And then you say, are you sleeping? And they was like, no, I'm just focusing. They are sleeping for sure. I heard them snore. And I can tell you for sure, today the question is, can we just live our life without God in the way we want to live? Or even live the life with God the way we want to live? And the answer is, this is the really painful thing, and I think it's a really tough topic, is the answer is really no. Because nobody likes to hear the word no. Certainly myself, if you speak with young people, they will say the same thing. Because there is nowhere in Bible where you can do your own life, the way you want, from the beginning to the end, that ends good. There is not a one good example, and we're going to go to 3 examples today to find out there is only one way. In fact, I would say it's not even the Christian way of Jesus' way if you think that you can live the life you just want to live the way it is. In other words, you live in Australia and I lived in England, in a societies where everything says this. And what is this? That is that the Bible itself, we need to fit the Bible really, not the Bible within us. What I want to say this to you is we are living in a society where the truth is very relative. In other words, there is my truth and my way, but certainly I would say there is a biblical way, and what I believe is the truth. And so therefore, this message might tend to be slightly more tougher, slightly more, I would say, in some ways conservative, but the positive thing about this is I'm just a guest speaker. Therefore, you have me here today, and then Pastor Pablo and Josh and Jess will fix this when I leave. But the reality is this. I actually feel this message is necessary for us. So let me give you kind of some slack as well. If you're here for the first time and somebody invited you to Castle Hill and said, listen, you need to come to Castle Hill because they have the best lunches in the world, congratulations, you are at the right place. If your friend invited you, hey, come with me because somebody's preaching or somebody's playing music and you're just having a good time, please keep enjoying. But if you're somebody like me, who is a baptized member of Seventh-day Adventist Church, then this message is for you. And so for all of you guys who are free to enjoy today, I just want to say this to you. Maybe, later on, give a hug to your friend because this could be a little bit tough on all of us. And the reason I say this is because I would like us to define our relationship with Jesus. Because I believe that determines the way God wants us to live with Him rather than just living beside Him. Now, let me tell you the story. I was a dean at Newell College. In case you don't know what it is, well, I'm pretty much a security guard. I'm just making sure the kids behave. And students never behave. And the reason they gave job to me is because I have this accent, which makes me sound like a Russian professional killer. So when I shout, they're like, oh, come here. Everybody goes, Dejan is calling, let's go. And so that was the only qualification I had. It was not spiritual values or stuff. No, it was just there, and it just looks a little bit and sounds dangerous. And I remember this. Our students, what would do? They will go to the Vesper service on Friday evening. Then they will go back to their rooms. And guess what? Because they were sitting in this little room on the side, I would see as they go up to their rooms, and then on the right-hand side through a door, I was able to see a girls' dormitory. Then I would see after a few minutes the boys coming down the stairs. In fact, I was able to smell them before I was able to see them. There was so much perfume. I had a headache. And then as they were coming down, I realized they put even nicer clothes than the clothes they had for the Vespers. And then they would walk in front of me and they would go to the girls' dormitory. Now I was like, let's see what happens. And then the girls would come down and then they would go for a walk. Later on, I realized they are going for a walk around the golf course, which was called Blue Mountains. It was just pure marketing hype. There was no mountains in England, and there was certainly no blue. Oh, you have Blue Mountains too, I just realized. The reality is this. They would go around this golf course, and guess what? They would use this time for something very important. What they would do, they would define their relationships. So what happens is they would just walk together, and they would chit-chat, blah, 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 blah. And then at one point of time, what would usually happen, that's what I was told, is the girl will take a step faster than a boy, and then she would just turn around like this, and she would say, define your relationship with me. For all the men who just heard that and the heart sank, do you know what happened really? We became a little bit less brave. If you remember, in old days, we used to hunt for our food, go fish our fish. Now we just go to Coles or McDonald's. So girls realize if they don't ask what's happening, they don't get answers. So girl will turn around, she would say, define your relationship with me. And then the next thing that will happen would be really interesting. The boy had about, I would say, 3 options. What options were that? Number 1 option was run. Excellent choice. In reality is, I believe some unofficial world records on 300 meters were broken there. Because I was in the office when the boy left, and I was there when he came back. And he came back really fast. That's exactly. Some boys chose to run. And they were just like, hey, I just have to go. Finish story. Option number 2 was to lie. And some boys did lie. They would look at the boy and the girl and they would say, well, the girl, he says, well, you are very beautiful. Totally forgetting one thing. Women have a lie detector in their brains. She knew he's lying the moment he opened his mouth. And do you know what the girl would do? She will help him dig the hole even deeper. She would say, yeah, tell me more. And then the boy would have to lie even more. Well, your personality, And I said, yeah, continue. Some students lied so much, they dug holes so deep they ended up in Australia. That's the reason why enrollment went down in Newbold. And the bottom line, third option was the best option. And the option number one was actually really to tell the truth. Option number one was, hey, listen, I think that, I really love you, I really respect you, maybe we must stay friends or whatever it is. So I can tell you that that walk around the golf course became the most beautiful walk and also the toughest walk for so many. And therefore, I would like to ask if it's possible for Castle Hill, all together, can we take a walk together with Jesus around the golf course, Blue Mountains? And have a walk and have a direct conversation and try to define what is our relationship with Jesus, because I really believe that determines to answer the question, can we just live the life next to Jesus rather than with Him? Can we just live the life our way or the Jesus' way? And Bible simply says, and this is the Bible text I will use today, it simply says, whoever wants to follow me must deny himself, take up a cross, and follow me. The Bible is simply saying this, that you and I actually have to leave ourselves so we can go with Jesus. Jesus is saying, I need to be one and only in your life, not just one among many in your life. And therefore, my friends, I just want to ask the question for you and for me, is he Jesus one and only? Or is he one among many? And what is the relationship with Jesus that you have? Because there are so many different versions these days. Are you just having this relationship with Jesus which is no strings attached? In other words, you go to church on Saturday, you worship Jesus, you have the most amazing church community, and then you go home and you just finish your relationship with Jesus there. No strings attached. Or is it your relationship with Jesus maybe a relationship of, let's just say, of benefits? In other words, you are with Jesus when it's comfortable to be with Jesus, when you need Jesus' blessings and His protection? Or is it your relationship with Jesus, the one which is full-time and all the time? What is your relationship with Jesus? And I can tell you for sure, as a pastor's son, I was nothing more than a fan for Jesus than actually a follower of Him. The reality is this, I was the best cheerleader for Jesus you can ever have. I could come to this door, come to the church, sit in a row, I can sing the song, sit down, pray, I knew exactly everything, autopilot. I can leave the church exactly the same as I walked in, and Jesus meant nothing for me in my life. I was the fan of Jesus. Later on, my friend explained to me, he said this, he said that actually there is a difference between the fans and the followers in the football clubs. I don't know about you, but my life is too stressful to support another football club or something like that and stress my life even more. Anybody feels like me? Yes? No? Okay. But I can tell you, I went to watch a football game once, never before. I've been to the football game. It was 20,000 people. My friend Paul Kim Brown walked me in, and I looked about 10,000 people there, and I was sitting here. It was Tottenham against Reading. I never even heard about these people, but hey. And then in one moment I saw on the side of the pitch, the door open, the ball comes out, and then the strangest thing happened as the Tottenham football players touched the grass. The 10,000 people on that side stood up and they started singing the song that you and me know very well. They started singing, "Oh, when the saints go marching in, oh, when the saints go marching in." 10,000 people. I looked at my friend, I said, "What's happening?" He says, "They're singing." I said, "I can see that. That's our song." He says, "No." He says, "Tottenham Club started as a church club, by the way. And guess what?" He said, explain to me. He says, when they touch the grass and they start singing, "Oh, when the saints go marching in," they're talking about the football players. He says, and they said, "I want to be in that number." In other words, they're saying, "I want to be additional player on the football pitch." Or when the saints go marching in. My friend, I looked at him and I was like, how is that possible? And he explained all this and I couldn't believe it. 5 years down the line, I was a pastor in a local church. And guess what? We sang the same song. And it sounded terrible. I looked at my friend later on. I said, "What's happening?" I said, "How come we sound so bad?" He says, "Oh, Dad, maybe because they're just fans rather than followers I said, what do you mean, Paul? He explained to me. He says when the football club goes through a difficult time, guess what? He says, and the fans are the ones who actually change and support different clubs later on. In other words, if it's raining, if it's snowing outside, what happens is they stay at home and watch on television. He says, but when it's raining and snowing, the true followers of the football clubs, they go with their clubs and they sing their hearts out. He says, fans are those who, when they start losing, they flip the channel and they start watching something else. He says, the true followers are those when the football club is going through a hard time, they put the hand even deeper in their pocket and they donate to the club saying, hey, it's all right. We're going to get through this together. He says, the fans are the ones who are there and not there, but the followers are those who always follow. And Jesus comes and he says, hey, whoever wants to follow me must deny himself, take up a cross and follow me. And I just want to come and give you 3 examples for us to determine, can we just live the life where Jesus is one among many, or can we just, or should we really live the life that Jesus is one and only? And the first example comes, and I will read this text to you. I think it's Luke chapter 9, verse 57, if you have a Bible to open. And it simply says, as they were walking along the road, a man said to him, I will follow you wherever you go. Can you notice one thing? What did he say? I will follow you wherever you go. He is even saying the right words. He says, I will follow you wherever you go. And then Jesus replied, foxes have holes and the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. If you read this Bible text, would you agree with me and say, this doesn't make sense? Did you see what happened is? Jesus is walking, and he says, and the man comes to him and says, I will follow you wherever you go. What do you expect from Jesus to say? Yes, please. Oh, no, thank you. Is that right? But Jesus is there walking, he says, I will follow you wherever you go. And then Jesus looks at him and he says, well, foxes have holes and the birds of the nest have nests, is that right? But the Son of Man has nowhere to put his head down. That is exactly as Pastor Josh, he's speeding through the area of the Castle Hill, which he would never do. The most exemplary driver we have. And the police catches him and send him to the court, and they say, Josh, what happened? Why did you speed, going 20 kilometers over the speed limit? And Josh says this, foxes have holes, and the birds of the air have nests. And the judge would say, can you please take this man out of the courtroom because he needs some professional help? This doesn't make sense. Jesus is there, he's like, hey, I want to follow you. And Jesus says, yes, foxes have holes. No, it doesn't make sense. And therefore, when I started reading this text, I realized one thing for sure, and that is that the man who came to Jesus and says, I want to follow you, he followed Jesus for a long time. In other words, he realized one thing. Do you know what he realized? That if you walk with Jesus, life is going to be easy. And do you know why I come to that conclusion? I'll tell you why. Because in those days, it was not easy to have bread on the table. So if you are hungry, if you're close to Jesus, guess what? Jesus can perform miracles and he can turn what? Rock into the bread. Is that correct? How many of you here love bread a lot? Thank you. You're my people. I'm sure there are people who love rice. We love you too, but a little bit less. In Serbia, if you have an empty piece of bread and another empty piece of bread on top of that, it's still called a sandwich. You know that? That's all we need. We're like, yeah, life is good. And this guy is following Jesus. He's like, if I follow Jesus, everything is going to be fine. When I'm hungry, Jesus will feed me. And guess what? On top of that, Jesus is able to perform the miracles. In other words, if you break your leg in those days, you would die pretty much. If you cut yourself, if you get injured, you would die. But Jesus was not only just walking, bread-making machine. Jesus was also Medicare. You don't have to even have the number. You just come to Jesus and like, finish. Jesus heals. So he realized if I follow Jesus, my life is going to be easy. And then Jesus looks at me, he says, you want to follow me? And this is what he says. He says, foxes have holes and the birds of air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to put his head down. Do you know what he said to him? He says, would you like to follow the homeless man? Because foxes have where to sleep and birds have where to sleep, but I am homeless and I'm going to sleep on this road here tonight. Would you like to follow a homeless man? And the story ends there. Jesus is saying to us, listen, you need to follow me and live the life with me, not because you will draw the benefits, but you need to follow me because you want to follow me. Jesus never promised that if you're a follower of Jesus, the life will be always easy, by the way. We already know that, but some people think that if they follow Jesus, everything is going to be fine. Because guess what? We are people who love comfort, and there is nothing wrong with that, but sometimes we replace and we mix God and God's blessings with the comfort in our life. I remember the days when I was at Newberg College, I bought a car which was called the Yugo. For all of you, you probably don't even know what it is, and that just shows how blessed you are. It was a car produced in my own country, by the way, Yugoslavia. People would ask me, "Do you have an airbag?" And I would put a smile on my face, and I would say, "No, I don't have airbag. I have a feather bag." And they would look at me and they said, "What's that?" And I said, "Well, that's a pillow which goes between the visor and the ceiling. And so if I hit something, the visor will open, and then the pillow will come back, fell on my steering wheel. I will hit the steering wheel. I will still die, but I will look good." And I remember how I started making mistake of thinking, well, comfort is, what I need to have in my life. I remember how I said, "Dear God, I need a different car." I didn't have a car a month ago. Suddenly I want a bigger car, faster car. I remember I was praying to God. I said, "Dear God, give me a roommate so I can share my bills." And then I got the roommate, which I can't mention the name, to protect the person. And we lived for about 3 months. And then I started praying to God, "Dear God, please take my roommate away. Anywhere you can. Earthquakes, tornadoes, just take him away." Because you want comfort in your life, and you start replacing God with the comfort in your life. And guess what? This is what we do in our lives. And Jesus is saying, well, no, if you want to follow me, you need to follow me, and you need to also know that actually I'm homeless. I want to be with you, not because of the benefits and because of the connections and because of all the blessings that you can receive, but because you want to follow him. A second man comes to him and he says this, I believe it's here somewhere. He simply says, here it is. He said to another man, "Follow me." But the man replied, "Lord, first let me go and bury my father." And Jesus said to him, "Let the dead bury their own dead, but you go and proclaim the kingdom of God." He says, one of these texts, which is actually, I'm really glad did not fulfill in Bible. He says, a man comes and he says, "Hey, Jesus is calling, come and follow me." And he's like, "Oh, I need to bury my dad." And you just had a funeral here. We all lost somebody in our families. We know how important this is in our lives. And then Jesus to be somehow so hard on him, I couldn't understand why. So I started digging deeper and deeper to find out that in the Bible that sentence was used to actually say something like this. For example, I would say to Dante, "Hey Dante, when are you going to plant the vineyard next to your house? Because I know how much you like grapes and the juice." And Dante would say, "Well, let me bury my father first." In other words, he would say this, "My dad is still alive, but he's opposing me doing this right now. He's opposing me of planting the vineyard next to me." And the bottom line is if you look at the concept historically, you will see that in Palestine and Israel, we find that this is the same sentence people would use and say, "Well, I will do this, but not right now, because I have somebody opposing me to do this right now in my life." And I just want to say this to you, my friends, when it comes to Jesus, especially to young people, there will always be somebody who will be opposing you following Jesus in your life. Always. I remember when I came home from my secondary school and my mom saw my face and she's like, "Why are you so sad?" And I'm like, "Mom, they're making fun of me because I believe in God and I go to church on Saturday and all sorts of things." And my mom, being pastor's wife, full of compassion and love, she looked at me and she said, "Boy," she said, "they're going to keep making fun of you until you're proud to be who you are." And then I looked at my mom. I said, "Thank you, Mother." And I went to my room and cried. Guess what? Mom was right. Tomorrow I went to the same school, same bullies, same people. They're like, you do this, you do that, how weird you are, and all these things. And I remember nothing changed from that conversation to that morning. I just went to my room and I just cried. And I remember my mom's words. And I looked at these boys and I said, "Listen, guys, I'm proud to be a Seventh Adventist. What about you? Are you proud to be anything in your life?" And you just see how the story just changed like that. And they're like, oh, we need to go now. And I can tell you for the rest of my days at the secondary school, people respected who am I, my faith. They stopped drinking next to me. They stopped smoking next to me, not because of any other reason, because Dejan is not smoking and drinking. Dejan cannot come to the party on Saturday because he goes to church. People started living their lives next to me, understanding that I carry a value in my life that maybe they should have as well, but not for now. And therefore, I want to say to all of you, my friends, that people and the world will keep making fun of us, of all Christianity, especially of Adventism, as long as we are not proud to be who we are. Let me just ask the question for you, my friends. What is your relationship with Jesus Christ? Are you his fan or are you his follower? And now the question I have for all of us here is this. Well, it's maybe not so important, but let me just test you. How many of you here are vegetarian? Let me just see. Australians have a very low percentage of vegetarians, just to point it out. How many of you here eat meat? Health message never reached Australia, I can see that. That's okay, that's okay. I'm not judging anybody. I just did, actually. So let me just ask the third question. How many of you eat meat sometimes? In other words, you're majority of time vegetarian. Yeah? Oh, that's right. Well, let me just tell you for all of you guys, third group, this is the fastest group of people when it comes to dietary needs in the world, which is growing. In other words, the people who call themselves vegetarian, but they eat meat sometimes. So let me tell you what that means. You go to the petrol station, you're rushing to work, you're so hungry, you go to get your 3 cheese sandwich, or whatever it is. It's usually terrible. And you're like, oh, there's like, oh, they ate it. And the next to that is chicken. And you're like, well, all right, I'll eat chicken today, all right. Or you go to the restaurant and you say, I would like to have some vegetarian lasagna. And a few minutes later, they come back to you and they say this, sorry, all vegetarian lasagna is gone, but we have some lasagna with lamb. And then you're like, well, lamb eats grass, which is vegetarian. I can go with this lamb. And Jesus is simply saying to all of us this, is that he wants us to be followers of Jesus all the time. And did you know the name of this group, which are vegetarian all the time and eat meat sometimes, they even have a name they call flexitarians. They are flexitarians, they're flexible about this. And Jesus is saying, hey, can we make a deal that actually we don't do this? What about that you and me remain together? What about you stop being flexitarian with me and live the life in full with me? Because all I want for you is to have a full, fulfilled life that one day will also end up in eternity. And dear friends, the last example comes here, and I need to finish this. Still another man said to him, I will follow you, Lord, but first let me go back and say goodbye to my father. Jesus replied, no one who puts the hand on the plow and looks back is fit for the service in the kingdom of God. In other words, what Jesus is saying this, and that's all I'm going to say. Jesus is saying this. Are you okay for you and me to actually live the full-time life of Christianity? Jesus is saying, is it okay for us to drop this part-time Christianity in our life? That you and me are always together. That you are one and only in my life and as I'm in yours. Jesus is saying to you and to me, hey, listen, let's do this all the way. Because guess what? The biggest issue of Christianity is that sometimes when we are trying to live this life, which is very flexitarian life with Jesus, we picked up usually the worst thing of Christianity. We pick up the rules and always the 10 commandments and all this, but then we forget the blessings of God and we struggle to build a relationship with God. And God is simply saying, if you and me can live full-time life together, you would see how beautiful this is. So dear friends, this morning, this is the reason I gave permission to you who came here for the first time. Hear this message. Because if you choose to follow Jesus, there is a level of commitment that is required. If you are struggling with God in your life right now, you're like a left, right, and center, you do not know. I just want to let you know this, guys. God has all the time for you to make these decisions in your life. So just because you don't feel like this or like that, don't allow this to put you away, but try to live this life which is full of God and Jesus. A life that simply is the way how God meant for all of us. So let's finish. My friends, moms and dads, I just want to tell the mom and dads a few moments. I was a youth pastor for the majority of my life. I spent actually pretty much all my life in youth ministry. Very often I'll have mom and dads come to me and they will say this: my son left the church, my daughter left the church, what to do about that? And sometimes they would ask me for the miracle answers. They would ask, they would ask me, if I do this A, B, C, they might decide to come back and follow God and all these things. But I can tell you this for sure, I have no answer for that. But one day, Father came to me, he says, let me tell you why my daughter left the church. And this is what he said to me. He says, we try to build our daughter that way that she fits the world as she fits the God and church. In other words, she was here and there. And I said, well, there's nothing wrong with that. He says, that's right. There is nothing wrong about this. What is wrong is simply this, that sometimes we would give her more or everything else except Jesus in her life. She was the best pianist. We were so happy about that. She was the best student. We were so happy about this. And so what we started doing is mixing Jesus with her normal life in the world. And then he said and finished this. He says, when she turned a certain age, he came to me and she said, I'm not going to church anymore, Dad. And I knew why. And the simple reason is because she chose that Jesus was not anymore important to her. And not only that, she simply saw no purpose for him in her life. He finished this conversation with me by saying this. He says, Dejan, give Jesus all the way to young people. Whatever that means for you moms and dads. But I just want to encourage you and to say, give them Jesus all the way. May they understand that God, He's a God of love and justice, that He is a God who is running after them to one day have a relationship that will take us all to eternity. So dear friends, this morning, I just want to ask once again a question. What is it? Are we fans or are we followers of Jesus? And I came to the conclusion that sometimes I'm more a fan than a follower. Would you agree with me if I say this? That you know the things you're going to do before you do the things. Would you agree with me? That you know yourself the best. I know exactly what I'm going to say for the next meeting. Believe it or not, I was even sitting here and I'm like, I need to say this, this, and this, and this. I will be ready for that. And I know when I drive a car, I know exactly what I'm going to do before I even do things. I know you do the same. But the reality is this, I just want us to maybe take a small exercise to help us. So what happens is, I'll be driving the car and I will see the car which is just about to cut me out. You know that doesn't go very well. Because nobody should cut you out, is that right? And then as I will come closer, they would cut me on, they will cut me out. And I remember in England, I will hit the horn, beep, 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 which is very rude. And then they will go. I realize in Australia, you guys have it. Did you notice this? Maybe you didn't notice because I just moved in. You guys do this. It's like, what are you doing? And then I don't know what to do because I'm still new. And I'm like, I don't know. So we have this couple of exchanges of this. That takes a few moments. I know what I'm going to do before I'm going to do. You know what you're going to do before you do things. And I just realized one thing. I need to stop this. And I need to start living the life as a follower of Jesus Christ. So do you know what I do? This is what I do. I count to three. I count to three. 1, 2, 3. And then I say, my name is Dejan Stojkovic. And I'm not a fan. And guess what? I started living like I'm not a fan. I say, 1, 2, 3. My name is Dejan Stojkovic. I'm not a fan. And I would just slow down. And I would do this. Even though inside of me is like, oh, that hurts so badly. But that's what God is calling us to do. To live the life of Jesus every moment of our lives. And when we fail, but when we at least to be trying every day to live the life of Jesus. So would you be able with me to finish this sermon? I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, and then you're going to say, my name is, and you will say it where you are, and then you will say your name, and then you will finish together by saying, I'm not a fan. Would that be all right? 1, 2, 3. My name is Dejan Stojkovic, and I'm not a fan. Let's try again. 1, 2, 3. My name is Dejan Stojkovic, and I'm not a fan. And as you say that, I hope, I really do, this becomes part of your life. And we would live life answering big questions with Jesus, living with Him until the very end. Amen.